The blue and green planet spun slowly beneath the massive ship called Starweaver. Kiravel pressed her pale hand against the viewing window and watched the world turn. Her silver eyes studied the brown continents and white clouds that moved across the surface. This planet looked like so many others she had seen during her training at the academy. Terra 3, she said to herself, reading the data that appeared in her mind through her neural implant. Third planet from a yellow star. Primitive life forms detected. Technology level. Early industrial. Kiravel was young for a Zephyrian scientist, only 25 cycles old. Her biocrystalline implant still gleamed with the bright blue color that marked a recent graduate. The older scientists on the ship had implants that had turned deep purple with age and experience. She wanted to prove herself worthy of their respect. Captain Velnoth approached her viewing station. His purple implants pulsed with soft light as he spoke. "Young scientist, what do you make of this world?" Kiravel straightened her tall, thin frame and answered carefully. "The inhabitants show basic tool use and simple energy manipulation. They burn fossil fuels and work with crude metals. Their technology is perhaps 2,000 cycles behind our current level." The captain nodded. His 4 arms moved in the gesture of approval that all Zephyrians understood. "A fair assessment. These humans, as they call themselves, barely deserve notice in our records. However, the war changes everything." Kiravel felt her stomach tighten. The Dominion War had spread across 3 galaxy arms in just 50 cycles. Entire civilizations had fallen to the dark ships that appeared without warning. The Dominion demanded total surrender from every species they encountered. "Their star system sits along the main trade route to the Outer Rim," Captain Velnoth continued. "We need allies, even primitive ones. You will go down to their world and make contact." "Me?" Kiravel's voice rose higher than she intended. "Captain, surely one of the senior diplomats would be more suitable." "This is exactly the type of mission for someone of your level," the captain replied. "Show them our superior technology. Give them small gifts to prove our power. They will submit quickly, as primitive species always do. Consider it practice before you handle more important assignments." 2 hours later, Kiravel sat in her personal transport ship as it descended through the Earth's atmosphere. The vessel was a marvel of Zephyrian engineering, powered by quantum crystals and shielded by gravity manipulators. It could cross star systems in days and survive direct hits from most weapons. She studied the landing site her computers had selected. A small settlement called Pine Ridge sat in a valley surrounded by mountains. The humans there seemed to be working on some kind of detection equipment. Large metal dishes pointed toward the sky, rotating slowly as they swept back and forth. The transport landed silently in a clearing near the human facility. Kiravel checked her translation device and stepped outside. The air felt thick and heavy compared to her ship's perfect atmosphere. She wrinkled her nose at the strange smells of growing plants and burning fuel. A human male approached her from the direction of the metal buildings. He was shorter than she was, with brown hair and dark eyes. His clothing was simple and practical, made from woven plant fibers rather than the advanced materials Kiravel was used to. "Hello there," the human said. "I'm Dr. Jake Morrison. I run the research station here. I have to say, that's quite a ship you've got." Kiravel activated her translation implant and spoke in what she hoped was the proper human language. "Greetings, Dr. Morrison. I am Kiravel of the Zephyrian Science Council. I come in peace to speak with your species." Jake Morrison smiled, showing his white teeth. "Well, you certainly picked the right place. We're always interested in talking to visitors, especially ones with technology like yours." This response surprised Kiravel. Most primitive species either ran in fear or fell to their knees in worship when first contacted by advanced civilizations. Dr. Morrison seemed remarkably calm for someone meeting an alien for the first time. "I wish to demonstrate the superior capabilities of my people," Kiravel said, following the script she had memorized. "Perhaps this will encourage cooperation between our species." "I'd love to see what you can show us," Jake replied. "But first, would you mind if I asked a few questions about your ship? I'm particularly curious about your propulsion system." Those energy readings my equipment picked up were fascinating. Kiravel felt a flutter of confusion. Your equipment detected my ship's approach? Oh yes, quite clearly. Your drive system puts out a distinctive pattern of electromagnetic radiation, very different from anything we've seen before. The frequency modulation suggests some kind of quantum field manipulation, but the power output seems surprisingly efficient for the effect achieved. The young Zephyrian stared at the human. Dr. Morrison was using technical terms that showed a level of understanding far beyond what she had expected. Her briefing materials had indicated that humans barely understood electricity. You have some knowledge of quantum mechanics, she asked. Jake laughed. We're not complete primitives despite appearances. We may be using older technology, but we understand the principles behind more advanced systems. We just haven't figured out how to build them yet. Kiravel decided to proceed with her demonstration. She pulled a small device from her belt and activated it. The gravity manipulator created a field that lifted several rocks from the ground and made them float in the air. She moved her hand, and the rocks danced through the air in complex patterns. Impressive, Jake said, watching carefully. Localized. Gravity field generation. The power requirements must be enormous. How do you manage the energy storage in such a small device? Again, the human's response caught her off guard. Instead of gasping in amazement, he was asking technical questions that showed he understood the basic principles involved. My people have mastered energy storage techniques beyond your comprehension, Kiravel said, though she felt less confident than her words suggested. I'm sure you have, Jake agreed, but I notice your device is getting warm. That suggests some inefficiency in the energy conversion process. Have you considered using superconducting loops to reduce the thermal loss? Kiravel looked at her. Gravity manipulator. It was indeed growing warm from use, just as Jake had observed. Her advanced device was showing signs of the very inefficiency this primitive human had identified. She deactivated the device and returned it to her belt. Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside your facility. I am curious to see what you consider advanced technology. Jake led her toward the metal buildings. As they walked, Kiravel found herself wondering if her mission would be as simple as Captain Velnoth had predicted. Dr. Jake Morrison led Kiravel through the metal doors of the research facility. The building felt warm and cramped compared to the spacious corridors of Zephyrian ships. Strange sounds filled the air, humming machines, clicking switches, and the steady tick of mechanical devices. This is our main laboratory, Jake said, gesturing around the room. We're working on improved radar systems for aircraft detection. Kiravel looked at the primitive equipment with barely hidden disdain. Massive metal boxes lined the walls, connected by thick cables that sparked occasionally. Mechanical dials and switches covered every surface. The humans had to turn knobs and flip levers by hand to operate their machines. Your technology appears quite basic, she said, trying to sound polite. A human female approached them from across the room. She had long black hair tied back and wore the same simple clothing as Jake. Her hands were stained with some kind of dark substance. Kiravel, meet Lisa Chen, our electronics specialist, Jake said. Lisa, this is our visitor from the stars. Lisa wiped her hands on a cloth and extended one toward Kiravel. The Zephyrian hesitated before shaking the offered hand, unsure of the human custom. Pleased to meet you, Lisa said. Jake told me about your ship. The energy patterns we detected were fascinating. How do you achieve such stable quantum field resonance? Kiravel blinked in surprise. Another human asking technical questions far beyond what she expected from a primitive species. My people have studied quantum mechanics for thousands of years, she replied carefully. We've only been working with it for a few decades, Lisa admitted. But we're learning fast. Would you mind showing us some more of your technology? Kiravel decided to demonstrate something truly impressive. She pulled out her matter synthesizer, a device the size of her palm that could create simple objects from energy. She placed it on a nearby table and activated it. Blue light surrounded the device as it hummed to life. Within seconds, a perfect metal cup appeared on the table. The humans gathered around to examine it closely. Remarkable, Jake said, picking up the cup. Matter energy conversion at the molecular level. The precision must require incredible computational power. And the energy requirements, Lisa added, studying the synthesizer. You must have some kind of miniaturized fusion reactor to power. Something like this. Kiravel felt pleased that the humans finally seemed impressed. Yes, our power systems are far beyond anything your species has developed. Jake and Lisa exchanged a look that made her feel uncomfortable. They seemed to be communicating without words, sharing some thought she couldn't understand. Would you like to see our power generation system? Lisa asked. It might interest you. They led her outside to a large building behind the main laboratory. Inside, a massive machine filled most of the space. Steam rose from pipes that connected to enormous metal cylinders. The whole system shook and rumbled as it operated. This is our main generator, Jake explained. It burns coal to heat water, creates steam to turn turbines, and generates electricity. Kiravel stared at the crude machine in disbelief. You burn solid fuel to create energy? How primitive. It works reliably, Lisa said with a shrug. Simple. To repair. Easy to understand. And it keeps running even when other systems fail. Before Kiravel could respond, her personal communicator buzzed with an urgent signal. She activated the device and Captain Velnoth's voice filled the air. All personnel return to ships immediately. Dominion forces have entered the system. Repeat, Dominion forces detected approaching Terra 3. The blood drained from Kiravel's face. The Dominion had found them. She looked at Jake and Lisa, who were listening to the communication with growing concern. What's the Dominion? Jake asked. The most dangerous military force in the galaxy, Kiravel replied, her voice shaking. They conquer every world they visit. Their technology is beyond anything you can imagine. She activated her communicator again. Captain, I request immediate transport back to the ship. Negative, came the reply. We need you to coordinate with the human leadership. Convince them to surrender immediately. It's their only chance to survive. Kiravel felt sick. She had seen the records of what happened to species that resisted the Dominion. Entire planets turned to glass. Billions dead in minutes. You have to surrender, she told Jake and Lisa. The Dominion fleet will destroy your entire planet if you resist. Jake and Lisa looked at each other again. That same silent communication passed between them. How long do we have? Jake asked. My ship's sensors show their fleet will arrive. In 6 hours, Kiravel replied. Please, you must contact your leaders and arrange surrender terms. 6 hours, Lisa repeated thoughtfully. That's enough time. Enough time for what? Kiravel demanded. To get ready, Jake said simply. Kiravel couldn't believe what she was hearing. Ready? Ready for what? You can't fight the Dominion with your primitive weapons. Their ships have energy shields that can stop nuclear explosions. Their weapons can destroy cities from orbit. Their soldiers wear armor that makes them nearly invincible. Maybe, Jake said. But they've never fought humans before. Your courage is admirable but pointless, Kiravel said desperately. I've studied the Dominion's military records. They've conquered over 300 species in the past century. Advanced civilizations with technology far superior to yours. Lisa was already moving toward a communication console. Jake, we need to contact General Collins at the main base and get word to all the radar stations. Lisa, you're not listening, Kiravel protested. The Dominion has quantum computers that can predict every possible battle outcome. They have ships that can become invisible. They have weapons that can penetrate any defense. Jake turned to look at her directly. All that advanced technology sounds impressive, but I'm curious about something. Have any of those 300 species ever tried fighting back with simple technology? The question caught Kiravel off guard. She thought about the military records she'd studied at the academy. Every conquered species had tried to match Dominion. Technology with their own advanced weapons. Energy shields against energy weapons. Quantum computers against quantum computers. Advanced against advanced. No, she admitted quietly. They all tried to fight using their most sophisticated systems. Then they all made the same mistake, Jake said. They assumed that more advanced always means better. Lisa was already speaking. into her communication device, using codes and terms that Kiravel didn't understand. Other humans began entering the laboratory, carrying equipment and talking in urgent voices. "What are you doing?" Kiravel asked. "Getting ready to show the Dominion something they've never seen before," Jake replied. "Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones." Kiravel watched in growing amazement as the humans began preparations that made no sense to her advanced understanding of warfare. Instead of trying to build better weapons, they seemed to be focusing on their most primitive equipment. She realized that in 6 hours, she was going to witness either the bravest or most foolish act in galactic history. 3 hours remained before the Dominion fleet would arrive. Kiravel stood in the Pine Ridge facility watching the humans work with growing confusion. Instead of building weapons or preparing defenses, they seemed to be doing the opposite. Jake Morrison and his team were taking apart their radar equipment piece by piece. The large metal dishes that had tracked her ship were being modified in ways that made no sense to her advanced understanding of detection systems. "What are you doing?" she asked Jake as he removed circuit boards from a control panel. "Making improvements," Jake replied without looking up from his work. "These radar systems were designed to find aircraft, but we're going to use them for something else." Lisa Chen approached, carrying an armload of vacuum tubes, primitive electronic components that Zephyrian technology had abandoned thousands of years ago. She began installing them in place of the more modern solid-state circuits. "Why are you using those old tubes?" Kiravel demanded. "They're less efficient and more likely to fail." "Sometimes failure isn't the worst thing that can happen," Lisa said. "Sometimes being too sophisticated is the real problem." A jeep pulled up outside the building, and a man in military uniform stepped out. He was older than Jake and Lisa, with gray hair and a stern expression. Jake went outside to meet him. "General Collins," Jake said, shaking the man's hand. "Thanks for coming so quickly." "I brought everything you requested," General Collins replied. "Though I have to say, your list was unusual. Scrap metal, old radios, and mechanical calculators aren't typical military equipment." Kiravel followed them outside and saw trucks arriving filled with the strangest collection of items she had ever witnessed. Piles of rusty metal, boxes of outdated electronics and mechanical devices that looked ancient even by human standards. "General Collins, I'm Kiravel," she said, approaching the military leader. "I must warn you that the Dominion cannot be defeated by conventional means. Your only hope is immediate surrender." The general studied her with sharp eyes. "Jake tells me you know a lot about this Dominion force. What kind of weapons do they use?" "Particle beams that can cut through any known material," Kiravel replied. "Energy shields that stop all projectiles. Quantum computers that can predict and counter any strategy." "And they've conquered hundreds of advanced civilizations?" "Yes. Species with technology far beyond anything humans possess." General Collins nodded slowly. "Then they're used to fighting enemies who think like they do, enemies who try to match their advanced systems with equally advanced countermeasures." "Of course," Kiravel said. "That's how modern warfare works." "Maybe," the general replied. "But there's something to be said for old-fashioned thinking." Work continued at a frantic pace. Humans arrived from other locations carrying more equipment that seemed hopelessly outdated. Mechanical adding machines, analog radios, and even some devices that appeared to use steam power. Jake's team finished modifying the radar dishes and began testing their new configuration. Instead of the focused beams they had produced before, the dishes now generated broad waves of electromagnetic energy that filled the air with static. "That's completely wrong," Kiravel protested. "You're creating interference instead of clear signals." "Exactly," Jake said with satisfaction. "Maximum interference is exactly what we want." Lisa's group had set up dozens of small radio transmitters around the facility. Each one broadcast on a different frequency, creating a chaos of overlapping signals. The noise was so bad that Kiravel's translation implant began having trouble processing human speech. "Your communication jamming will affect your own systems too," she pointed out. "We know," Lisa replied. That's why we're using equipment that doesn't rely on sophisticated electronics. She gestured to a group of humans operating mechanical calculators, devices that used gears and wheels instead of electronic circuits. Others were using signal flags and hand gestures to communicate between different areas of the facility. General Collins coordinated with other military bases using a telegraph system, metal wires that carried simple electrical pulses representing coded messages. The technology was so primitive that Kiravel had only read about it in historical archives. 1 hour until contact, announced a soldier reading signals from the telegraph. All stations report ready. Kiravel watched the final preparations with amazement and horror. The humans had assembled the most primitive military force she could imagine. Their weapons were chemical explosives that hadn't changed in design for decades. Their communications relied on technologies that predated spaceflight. Their detection systems created more noise than useful information. "This is madness," she said to Jake. "The Dominion will destroy you in minutes." "Maybe," Jake agreed, "but they'll have to figure out how to fight us first." The Dominion fleet arrived exactly when predicted. 12 massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit, their dark hulls reflecting no light. Each vessel was larger than any human city, armed. With weapons that could crack continents, Kiravel's communicator activated, carrying a transmission from the Dominion commander. The voice was cold and mechanical, translated by systems more advanced than any Zephyrian technology. "Primitive inhabitants of Terra 3. You will surrender immediately or face total destruction. You have 10 minutes to respond." General Collins took the communicator from Kiravel. "This is General Pete Collins, commanding Human Defense Forces. We reject your demand for surrender." "You choose destruction," the Dominion voice replied. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. Your simple minds cannot comprehend our power." "Maybe not," the general said. "But you can't comprehend ours either." The first Dominion attack began with scanning beams that swept across the planet's surface. The aliens were mapping human military positions using sensors that could detect the quantum signatures of advanced weapons and defenses. But the quantum scanners found nothing to lock onto. The human equipment was too simple to register on instruments designed to identify sophisticated technology. The Dominion sensors looked for energy shields and found none. They searched for particle weapons and detected only chemical explosives. They scanned for quantum computers and discovered only mechanical calculators. "Target acquisition failing," the Dominion commander announced, confusion creeping into his mechanical voice. Unable to identify primary weapon systems. The second phase of attack involved electronic warfare, quantum viruses designed to cripple enemy computers and communication networks. Invisible signals swept across Earth, carrying digital weapons that could destroy the most advanced artificial intelligence systems. The viruses found nothing to attack. Human radios used analog signals that couldn't be infected with digital code. Their mechanical calculators had no electronic components to corrupt. Their telegraph wires carried simple electrical pulses that were immune to quantum interference. "Electronic countermeasures ineffective," the Dominion commander reported. "Enemy systems show no response to digital attack." Jake Morrison grinned as he watched his modified radar dishes spring into action. Instead of trying to penetrate the Dominion's stealth technology, they filled space around the alien ships with electromagnetic chaos. The sophisticated alien sensors designed to filter and process precise information became overwhelmed by the crude but powerful interference. "Navigation systems compromised," came panicked reports from the Dominion fleet. "Sensor arrays malfunctioning. Unable to maintain formation." Lisa Chen activated her network of radio transmitters, flooding the communication frequencies with random noise. The Dominion's universal translators, capable of handling thousands of galactic languages, crashed when confronted with deliberate gibberish broadcast on dozens of overlapping channels. "Communication breakdown across all frequencies," the Dominion commander announced, unable to coordinate fleet movements. Kiravel stared in shock as the most powerful military force in the galaxy began falling apart. The Dominion ships, unable to see clearly or communicate effectively, started colliding with each other as they tried to maintain formation. Their advanced systems, designed for precision warfare against sophisticated enemies, couldn't handle the chaos of fighting primitives who used noise as a weapon. The Dominion commander's voice crackled through the damaged communication systems filled with anger and confusion. All ships pull back to safe distance. Recalibrate all systems. These primitives are using some kind of unknown technology. Kiravel watched the massive alien ships retreat from Earth's orbit, their formation broken and scattered. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. The most feared military force in the galaxy was running from humans using equipment her own people had abandoned centuries ago. They're regrouping, Jake Morrison said, studying the data coming from his modified radar systems. But they don't understand what hit them. General Collins joined them at the command center, where humans continued operating their mechanical calculators and analog radios. How long before they figure out a counter-strategy? The Dominion has quantum battle computers, Kiravel said, still stunned by what had happened. They can analyze any military situation and develop perfect responses within minutes. Perfect responses to normal warfare, Lisa Chen corrected, but we're not fighting normal warfare. The second Dominion attack came an hour later. This time the alien commander had adapted his strategy. Instead of relying on sophisticated sensors and electronic warfare, the Dominion ships approached using only visual targeting and direct energy weapons. 12 beams of concentrated plasma lanced down from orbit, aimed at major human cities. Each beam carried enough power to vaporize everything within miles of impact, but the beams never reached their targets. As they passed through Earth's atmosphere, they struck clouds of metallic particles that Jake's team had released using modified weather balloons. The simple aluminum chaff cut into precise lengths created a shower of interference that scattered the plasma beams in all directions. Impossible, the Dominion commander transmitted. Our targeting computers show direct hits, but sensors detect no damage. General Collins spoke into his telegraph transmitter, sending coded messages to bases around the world. Within minutes, responses came back confirming that all major targets remained untouched. Your advanced targeting hit exactly what we wanted you to hit, the general replied to the Dominion commander. Nothing important. The alien response came quickly. If energy weapons couldn't penetrate the chaff clouds, they would use physical projectiles instead. The Dominion ships launched thousands of guided missiles, each one equipped with sophisticated guidance systems and explosive warheads, powerful enough to level mountains. Lisa's electromagnetic interference made the missiles' guidance systems useless, but they continued toward Earth on ballistic trajectories. The humans had prepared for this possibility too. Across the planet, teams of humans launched their own projectiles, not advanced missiles, but simple rockets filled with nothing but sand and small pieces of metal. The crude rockets couldn't match the speed or power of Dominion weapons, but they didn't need to. The human projectiles exploded in the path of the incoming missiles, creating clouds of debris that acted like giant shotgun blasts. The Dominion missiles, designed to penetrate energy shields and armor plating, were torn apart by impacts with simple grains of sand traveling at high velocity. Target destruction confirmed, reported human observers using basic telescopes and binoculars. All incoming missiles neutralized. Kiravel stared at the primitive equipment the humans were using to coordinate their defense. No quantum computers, no advanced sensors, no sophisticated battle management systems. Just humans with mechanical calculators, paper charts, and simple radios working together with the efficiency of a machine. How are you doing this? She asked Jake. Your technology shouldn't be capable of defeating Dominion weapons. That's exactly why it works, Jake replied. The Dominion expects us to fight using advanced technology, so they designed countermeasures for advanced technology. They never considered that someone might choose to fight using simple technology. The third Dominion attack showed desperation. Unable to use their energy weapons or guided missiles effectively, the alien commander ordered his ships to land ground forces. Thousands of Dominion soldiers descended toward Earth in armored transports, wearing powered battlesuits that made each warrior nearly invincible. General Collins had prepared for this too. As the Dominion transports entered the atmosphere, human forces across the planet began their strangest attack yet. Teams of humans aimed mirrors, simple polished metal reflectors, at the descending spacecraft. Coordinated by telegraph messages and synchronized by mechanical clocks, thousands of mirror operators focused reflected sunlight on the Dominion vessels simultaneously. The concentrated light didn't damage the alien ships, but it completely overwhelmed their optical sensors. The Dominion pilots, blinded by the simple reflected sunlight, crashed their transports into mountains, forests, and empty fields far from their intended targets. Visual navigation failed. Came panicked reports from surviving Dominion forces. Unable to see targets, repeat, unable to see targets. You're looking for the wrong things, General Collins transmitted to the alien commander. You expect to fight enemies who hide from light. We use light as a weapon. Those Dominion soldiers who survived the crashes found themselves scattered and alone, their communication systems still jammed by Lisa's radio interference. Their powered armor, designed to deflect energy weapons and projectile attacks, offered no protection against the humans' next surprise. The battle suits relied on sophisticated electronics to function. When human teams approached with basic electromagnetic pulse devices, simple coils of wire wrapped around iron cores, the primitive EMP generators destroyed the aliens' complex circuitry while remaining unaffected themselves. Dominion soldiers, who had seemed invincible in their advanced armor, suddenly found themselves trapped in dead metal shells, unable to move or communicate. Human forces captured them using nothing more than ropes and simple tools. "This is impossible," the Dominion commander broadcast, his mechanical voice breaking with static. "Our battle algorithms show no scenario where primitive technology defeats advanced systems." "That's your problem," Jake Morrison replied. "Your algorithms only consider scenarios that make sense to you, but we don't fight the way you expect anyone to fight." Kira Vell watched in amazement as the remaining Dominion ships began a full retreat. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was fleeing from a species they had initially dismissed as barely worthy of notice. "I don't understand," she said to Jake. "How did you know this would work?" "We didn't," Jake admitted. "But we knew that trying to match their advanced technology would fail. Every other species in the galaxy made that mistake. So we decided to try the opposite approach." Lisa Chen joined them, wiping grease from her hands after making repairs to one of the radio transmitters. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. The Dominion spent so much time perfecting their technology that they forgot how to deal with imperfect technology." "But your equipment breaks down constantly," Kira Vell protested. "Your radios fail, your calculators jam, your generators need constant repair." "Exactly," Lisa said with a smile. "And when they break, we fix them. When Dominion equipment breaks, they don't know how to repair it because it's too complicated. They depend on perfection. But perfection is fragile." General Collins approached with a telegraph message in his hand. "Final report from all stations. Dominion forces in full retreat. No human casualties reported." Kira Vell looked around at the humans celebrating their impossible victory. They had achieved something no advanced civilization in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had defeated a superior enemy, not by matching their technology, but by refusing to play by the rules of advanced warfare. "The other species in the galaxy need to hear about this," she said quietly. "They need to know that there's another way to fight." Jake nodded. "Maybe it's time the galaxy learned something from the primitives." 3 days after the Dominion retreat, Kira Vell sat in the Pine Ridge laboratory watching Jake Morrison repair a broken radio with a simple screwdriver and spare parts. The sight still amazed her. When Zephyrian equipment failed, they replaced entire circuit modules grown in quantum foundries. When human equipment failed, they opened it up and fixed the broken pieces. "I need to send a report to my people," she said, holding her advanced communicator. "But I don't know how to explain what happened here." "Tell them the truth," Jake suggested without looking up from his work. "Sometimes simple technology works better than complex technology. They won't believe it. The Zephyrian Science Council has spent thousands of years developing more and more sophisticated systems. The idea that primitive equipment could be superior goes against everything we've learned." Lisa Chen entered the laboratory carrying a cup of coffee and a mechanical calculator. She sat down at a workbench covered with vacuum tubes and began testing each one individually using methods that were ancient even by human standards. Maybe that's the problem, Lisa said. You've learned that newer is always better, but that's not always true. Sometimes older designs work because they're simple and reliable. Kira Vel activated her communicator and contacted the Starweaver. Captain Velnoth's image appeared in the holographic display, his purple implants pulsing with urgency. Kiravel, report your status immediately. Our sensors detected the Dominion retreat, but we cannot understand how the humans achieved victory. Captain, the humans defeated the Dominion using primitive technology that the aliens couldn't counter, Kiravel explained. They used electromagnetic interference, reflected light, and mechanical systems to overwhelm sophisticated Dominion weapons. Impossible. Our battle simulations show that primitive technology cannot defeat advanced systems. You must be mistaken about what actually occurred. General Collins entered the laboratory and approached the communication device. Captain Velnoth, this is General Pete Collins. I commanded the Human Defense Forces. Would you like me to explain our strategy? The Zephyrian captain's forearms moved in the gesture of confused attention. General, our analysis indicates that your victory was statistically impossible. How did you overcome such superior technology? We didn't overcome it, the general replied. We made it work against itself. The Dominion's advanced systems were designed to handle advanced threats. When we gave them primitive threats instead, their sophisticated responses became disadvantages. Elaborate on this concept. General Collins gestured to the equipment around them. Look at this radio. When it breaks, any human can fix it with basic tools. Your advanced systems probably require specialized equipment and trained technicians to repair. Of course, complex systems require complex maintenance procedures. Exactly. So when we damaged Dominion equipment using simple methods, they couldn't adapt quickly enough. Their repair systems were designed for sophisticated damage, not for sand scratches and overheated circuits. Captain Velnoth was quiet for several moments. This approach contradicts all accepted military doctrine. Advanced technology should always defeat primitive technology. Should, maybe, Jake said, joining the conversation. But what should happen and what actually happens aren't always the same thing. We learned that sometimes the best tool for a job is the simplest tool that works. Over the following weeks, word of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy. Other species that had survived Dominion attacks began sending representatives to Earth to study human military techniques. Kira Vel found herself serving as a translator between human engineers and alien scientists who couldn't believe what they were learning. A delegation from the Centauri Republic arrived first. Their leader, Ambassador Zek Prima, examined human radar equipment with obvious confusion. These detection systems are incredibly crude, the ambassador said through his translation device. Our sensors can identify individual molecules at interplanetary distances. Why would you choose to use such primitive equipment? Because it works when your advanced sensors don't, Lisa explained patiently. When someone jams your sophisticated systems, you're helpless. When someone jams our simple systems, we switch to backup methods or fix the problem manually. The ambassador watched Lisa demonstrate by deliberately damaging a radio and then repairing it within minutes using only hand tools. Remarkable. Our equipment would require factory-level facilities to perform such repairs. More alien delegations arrived every day. The Andromedan Trade Union wanted to learn about human manufacturing techniques. The Spiral Arm Defense League requested training in primitive weapons systems. Even the proud Galactic Core civilization sent observers to study what they initially called retrogressive technology applications. Kira Vel worked with Jake to develop training programs for alien visitors. They discovered that most advanced species had completely forgotten how to work with simple tools and basic materials. Engineers who could design quantum computers couldn't understand how mechanical calculators functioned. It's like we've forgotten how to walk because we've gotten so good at flying, one vegan scientist observed, after struggling to operate a manual adding machine. That's exactly right, Jake agreed. You've become dependent on advanced technology for everything. When it fails or gets countered, you have no alternatives. The most significant development came when the Galactic Defense Council officially requested human military advisors. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species was being asked to teach advanced civilizations how to fight. General Collins established the Human Military Advisory Corps, training alien officers in what they called appropriate technology warfare. The basic principle was simple: use the right tool for the job, not necessarily the most advanced tool available. A hammer is primitive technology, the general explained to a class of alien officers. But when you need to drive a nail, a hammer works better than a quantum particle manipulator. Kiravel watched the transformation with amazement. Species that had looked down on humanity just months before now competed to learn human techniques. Universities across the galaxy established departments of primitive systems engineering. Advanced civilizations began incorporating simple backup systems into their sophisticated designs. The greatest shock came when the Dominion itself requested a meeting. Their new commander, Admiral Kex Vorth, arrived under a flag of truce to speak with human leaders. "We have analyzed your victory extensively," the Admiral admitted during negotiations at the United Nations building. "Our quantum computers cannot find a counter-strategy for your methods because your methods don't follow logical patterns." "They follow human logic," General Collins replied, "which apparently isn't the same as computer logic. We propose a treaty. The Dominion will cease all attacks on human territory and allied worlds. In exchange, we request access to your military training programs." Kiravel translated the alien's words, still hardly believing she was hearing them. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was asking to learn from the species they had once dismissed as primitives. The treaty was signed 3 months later. As part of the agreement, humans established training bases on Dominion worlds, teaching alien soldiers how to fight using simple weapons and basic tactics. Kiravel decided to remain on Earth permanently as a cultural exchange officer. She had learned more about engineering and military science in 6 months with humans than in years at the Zephyrian Academy. "I still don't completely understand how you knew this would work," she said to Jake as they worked together in the Pine Ridge laboratory. "We didn't know it would work," Jake admitted. "But we knew that doing what everyone else had done would definitely fail. So we tried something different. And if it had failed, then we would have failed trying something new instead of failing doing something old. Either way, we would have failed, but at least we would have learned something." Kiravel looked around. The laboratory at the collection of simple machines and basic tools that had changed galactic history. Vacuum tubes glowed softly in radio circuits. Mechanical calculators clicked as students practiced using them. Steam rose from the coal-fired generator that powered everything. "My people are starting to add backup systems to their ships," she said. "Simple mechanical controls that work when the quantum systems fail. They're calling it the human protocol." "Good," Jake replied. "Maybe someday they won't need to call it primitive anymore. Maybe they'll just call it smart." Outside the laboratory, representatives from dozens of alien species worked alongside human engineers, learning to value reliability over sophistication, function over complexity. The galaxy was slowly discovering what humans had always known: that the best technology isn't always the newest technology, and that sometimes the most advanced solution is to keep things simple. Kiravel smiled as she watched her advanced communicator fail again, its quantum circuits overloaded by interference from a nearby radio transmission. She picked up a mechanical pencil and a piece of paper to write her report the old-fashioned way, and found that it worked perfectly.